Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, guys. Good morning to you.
So how did you discover Steve?
Steve Seal, first of all, I agree with you. Steve's amazing, right? Ecotech, scientific pest elimination. He is a guy who understands the science. He's a guy who understands operations, customer service. So we found each other because of this new approach, this Lime Shield system, which is a way to combine everything that folks like Steve already does with a new solution, which is looking at the mice and looking at ways to reduce the infection of those mice.
Now, is that where ticks, because people are under the impression that deer are the only one who carries ticks.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, the number one thing to recognize is that most of the time, ticks are infected with what we call Lyme disease by feeding on already infected mice, right?
So
there's a cycle.
I thought deer only ate vegetation. I didn't know they ate, meat.
Right.
So the deer themselves, this is how it works. So
Okay.
The deer themselves are actually like the cruise ships for the ticks. That's where the ticks are mating, they're making eggs, right? They're carrying them around. And then what happens are that larval ticks, the baby ticks, they drop to the ground for them. And they find they're hungry. They want to go feed. And so what do they find? They find these infected mice. Mm-hmm. And so when a tick feeds on an infected mouse, it sucks up the blood. Inside of that blood is that bacteria that causes Lyme disease. It's called Borrelia burgdorferi, right? And then that tick is infected. So the next time that tick feeds, a year later, on its nymphal stage, it's a teenager tick, that's when it infects other animals, right? So what it wants to do is go feed on another mouse or another small mammal, right? Because it wants to stay in the forest. It wants to stay in those protected areas. It wants to find its way back onto a deer so it can mate and it can die, right? That's what the evolution wants it to do. That's what its tick cycle is. Unfortunately, and actually really by accident, it gets onto a human or it gets onto your dog. And then it passes that disease, that bacteria, over to humans, over to pets. And 500,000 times a year in America alone, it gives us Lyme disease. And Lyme disease is a terrible disease. It's causing... Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know, because I have a very dear friend that is been suffering for years before they kind of figured out what it was doing, and he's really in bad shape.
Yeah.
He actually works with one of the top Lyme specialists in the world who won't even take health insurance. He's the guy, and he sees him all the time for anything new. But, here's the issue. First of all, what are you and Steve working? I mean, your company, U.S. Biologic, is working on it now. How does that translate? What can Steve do with the product you produce to have stop this cycle?
So what Steve has always done is control the ticks, right? He wants to find ways to reduce that tick population, right? He also does a lot to control the mice that are outside, these mice that are in your field, and that's because of that mouse and tick interaction, right? That I was just talking about. Here's what U.S. Biologic is bringing. We have a Lyme vaccine covered pellet. That Lyme vaccine covered pellet, we put it in the areas where there's the most mice, the most ticks, and the most humans. In residential areas, we have a timed application station that allows just a small amount of these Lyme vaccine covered pellets available to the mice at any one time. So then the mice eat the pellets, right? And what happens? Well, they get vaccinated, right? If they're vaccinated, they have protection against Borrelia. So a mouse that doesn't have it can't pass that infection to a tick. A non-infected tick can't give it to a human.
How do you? How do you inoculate mice so they don't transmit it?
Yeah, they're eating the pellets. They have a vaccine-covered pellet. They eat it, and that pellet goes through their digestive system, and it inoculates mice. It vaccinates mice.
How often do you have to put these pellets out? Is that a daily routine, or how does that work? Or how does Steve get involved to make sure that he comes on and plants it? Because I don't want to put my hands on that stuff.
Well, that's that timed application station. So what we can do then is put out enough that will be applied over a 3-month period. So Steve, in his business, he goes out 4 times a year. Right, he goes out to your backyard 4 times a year. He does his tick spray, also the different products that he already uses. But then on top of that, he's able to just refill the station with these pellets. So it's a very simple system for him. He's able to go out there. The pellets are always going to be available to the mice on a year-round basis. And you know what? The mice really are great about finding those pellets. We did these big field studies They're great. They really are your best customer. We did these big field studies with the state of Connecticut. The Connecticut
where Lyme disease
Experiment
came
Station.
from, exactly, Lyme,
Right.
Connecticut.
It was first described in Lyme, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's what it's named after.
So let me ask you this. Is it harmful, those pellets, to other animals, like if a dog or cat is outside, or a bunny rabbit, or any of those little cuties?
Number one question. If it's not safe, it's a non-starter, right? There is no product if it's not safe. So we asked that question for a long time. We tested it in a lot of different ways. So here we go. We got 8 years of field trials in New York and Connecticut, right? CDC put in, and the NIH put in $7 million to those. We then turned around, and we had no adverse events with the animals. Nothing. We looked around a lot. How many mice are we picking up? Same amount. How many animals are we finding inside the traps also? Same amount as we always would. None of them had a problem based on the vaccine, right? We then, with the USDA, we're a USDA conditionally licensed product right now. With the USDA, there's a rigorous safety testing program that we do with them. And what we're going against multiple species of mice. We're dosing them very heavily. We're watching their health status very carefully. I'm talking hundreds of animals, right? And no adverse events. And so we feel, and when you look at the composition of the vaccine and everything else that goes into it, it is a very, very strong safety profile.
Okay, so I understand everything you're saying on this.
No, you're lost on this thing, Taylor.
No,
I know
I'm
that.
not lost. I'm still focused on the, effect on other animals. Because,
Sure.
this product that they're working on, again, there's 8 years of study, I get it. But anything they've had that's affected anything, whether it's Lyme, whether it's outdoor sprays, whether it's bees or hornets, whatever, there's always some kind of issue when it comes to regular domesticated animals. So I cannot figure out what is in that product that can't harm animals. That's the thing. But the mice don't die when they ingest it.
That's right.
So that's
not
interesting.
Because of this vaccine.
Right.
Here's the key thing. Here's the super key thing. And you said it earlier. You're talking about the collars. Right?
Right.
You're talking about other things we do with the animals, like a neck guard or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are chemicals. Okay? Those are chemicals. Those are pesticides, acaricides. They're the ones
They're
that are
carcinogens.
meant to kill the animal.
Right.
Right. And those chemicals will stay in that animal for a certain amount of time. Right. That's just how they work. This is a biologic. This is a totally different thing. This is a cell. This is just a protein. Right, this is just a protein.
Oh,
and
so
this
is not an insecticide or any of that.
Nope, absolutely. Absolutely not.
Somebody texted in, how do mice get infected in the first place? We did discuss that earlier.
Yeah, well, let's
get
just
up early, folks.
No, let's just review this because it is pretty fascinating. So, so going back to now, deer ticks. All right, we're talking. These are the only ticks we're talking about? What they call deer ticks? Because there are other ticks too, right?
There are multiple species of ticks, and they're all bad.
They are.
Awful.
All right.
Yeah. They all carry diseases.
All right.
But the only known vector, as it's called, for Lyme disease are those deer ticks, are those black-legged ticks, also called Ixodes scapularis, if you want to sound smart in front of your friends.
I took Latin, yeah.
That'll never work for me.
No, so the only place that these ticks breed are on deer?
On multiple species. They're everywhere.
Oh, really?
Right. They're all over the place. But deer is a major breeding ground.
Right now, when you're talking about this stuff that you spread on the yard, the mice eat it, and that prevents them from getting Lyme disease because it's a preventative for them. If they already have it, this doesn't help, right?
That's right. You're absolutely correct. We don't spread it on the yard. What we do is we push it off to the corner of the yard with this timed application station.
Right.
Mice don't like to come out in the middle of your yard usually. They get eaten that way. A bird picks them up, right? So they like to stay around the edges. They like to stay around, harborage areas, wood pile, that sort of thing, right? And so we put those vaccinated pellets, those vaccine-covered pellets over into those areas. And, again, the mice finds it. They get it vaccinated. If the mouse doesn't have it, can't give it to a tick. Tick doesn't have it, can't give it to a human.
Now, what about the deer itself? I know people go deer hunting. They eat the deer. I mean, does the deer eat the pellets?
But the deer don't get Lyme disease.
Do they?
You know what's interesting? Steve Cielo and I talked about this just yesterday. We were just talking about it, and he called me out on something. He was right about something because he's reading these scientific papers. Deer actually have inside of their blood serum, they have something that actually kills the Borrelia inside of them.
So why don't they test the blood of the deer to find out how we can get rid of Lyme?
They are.
Are they doing
that?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're looking at that. Oh, yeah. That's an interesting thing that they're trying.
Yeah, that would make
that's
sense.
Years and years and years away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a long time for us. So, yeah, this is available right now. Limeshield.com. You can find it very quickly and talk to your pest management professional.
Now, here's a couple more questions for you that's of interest for people that have yards and stuff. If you don't have any deer in your yard,
what planet is that?
Well, I mean, if you have a fenced-in yard or whatever, and the deer don't get in, whatever, high fence, whatever, ticks don't tend to walk by themselves into your yard, right?
Yeah.
They need to be carried into your yard by something.
Yeah, they're there. They're there. I mean, they're lots of animals.
I just want to, Chris.
Yeah.
I just want to remind Frank. Remember when you went up to the tower?
I don't want to remember that, Taylor.
So he went up. We have a 200-foot tower. Oh, by the way, I just read an article where somebody stole a 200-foot tower.
They stole the whole tower.
The whole tower.
Well, good. They can have ours. It needs to be replaced anyway. It's old.
It wasn't ours. But anyway, he went.
Hang on. Why would they steal a tower?
Well,
who doesn't want a tower in their backyard?
Why and how?
Just look for the guy. Look for the guy with the brand new tower in his backyard. That's your criminal.
No, well, the police said what they thought happened is because there's copper on these towers that they were stealing for the copper.
Okay.
By the way, folks, for those out there robbing towers, we don't have copper in ours. So just mention that.
No.
But anyway.
Public disclaimer.
Yeah, exactly.
I went up there with a gentleman that we were working on the fencing around the tower because that's a legal requirement. And, I was only up there for a little bit, and I seen him. He goes, oh, look at that. I have a tick on me. And he started picking one off, and I talked with him for about 5 minutes, and we were in a field, but it wasn't high grass, and I'm walking down, and I go as I'm walking down to leave the field, I look at my pants legs, and there must have been 50 of them crawling up my leg.
Well,
I was covered.
The best
I was covered.
is he comes back to the station, and he comes in and he goes, I got to take my pants off. And I've been, can you wait till we get home tonight? and he said, no, I got ticks. And he dropped his pants, and I'm telling you, his legs were
It was
loaded.
in the car. It was.
So they don't have to be on a deer.
It was.
What we're trying to say.
You've never seen anything like it, and that was that was the last time. I mean, talk about an infestation. That was insane.
Somebody's asking for the .com address for you, Chris, to know how they can get more information about this on texting.
Yeah, a couple different places. Go to limeshield.com, LYMESHIELD.com, and you can contact us. You get more information. You can contact us, and we'll get you in touch with your pest management professional. In New York, New Jersey,
Steve
Seals Ecotech is one of the best.
He is the
There's also
best.
Pest by MD.
Yeah.
Pest by MD is a great shop. JP McHale Pest Management, another great group. These are folks who really care about you. They really want to help you and protect you, and they got a lot of different tools.
Yeah,
I think the
got
best.
This one as well.
I think the best thing is just stay inside because you got to watch out for ticks. You got the sunburn. I got melanoma. You got to watch out for the sun. I got the Canadian smoke coming down. I can't breathe. I'll stay inside.
But that's the thing. We shouldn't be afraid to go outside, right?
Yeah,
It's just a new way of doing that. Hey, here's one other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to get into public parks, campgrounds, playgrounds. Those golf courses.
So there's no harm to
people go.
There's no harm to people with this either, right?
It's got a very strong safety profile. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and listen, here's another thing too. Mice do they actually carry the ticks with them sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're doing this. A mouse can have like 100+ ticks on it at any one time.
Really? Are they visible on the mice, or is it like kind of?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
All
They're all over, especially the ears. So if you think about a mouse ear, it's got like really thin skin, but it's got all the veins in there.
Now the reason
That's
why
how the mouse keeps cool. It has all those veins and all that blood, so it's a perfect place for a tick to latch on.
Now the reason why I'm asking that is because I tend to catch at least 1 or 2 mice a week in traps in my garage. And I look at them to see if I see any tick on there. Of course, they've already passed and gone to the Golden Rainbow, whatever that thing is, Rainbow Bridge. But in any case, do I have to be exceedingly careful when I'm removing the trap or whatever? Could there be a tick on? I don't see them. Are they small?
No, house mouse. Yeah, this is you got a house mouse. Those are the ones you deal with in your house.
Yeah.
Those are different. Those are a little bit different than what you're getting in your backyard. Those are field mice. These little Paramyscus leucopus, these little white-footed mice, they're nasty little creatures. They're a little bit smaller. They're much meaner.
Yeah, because
they're in your backyard.
Yeah, I find them in the garage usually on the way in. So aren't those mice that would have been outside that just came in the garage? You would think, or
they could be, but why would they leave your house? Your house is warm.
Yeah, that's true.
They left it because Frank killed them.
Yeah, they like to eat all the car parts, and all the wires and
I
things.
did have that happen once when I left my car out in the winter.
Yeah.
It chewed right through my starter wire.
Oh, it does all sorts of stuff like that.
Here's a question now. Do the mice have any effect from the ticks, or are they just carriers? They can't. The ticks can't kill the mice.
So this is crazy. Mice don't care about Borrelia. They don't get affected by it. They don't get a disease.
So why don't they use their blood to make an injection? Maybe that is a preventive way or if somebody has Lyme, maybe that would help. Have they worked on that?
There's some interesting stuff out there. That's a long way off. That's really complicated, trying to take the antibodies of one animal and to try to put it into another animal. That's really, really complicated.
Right.
Look, this is much simpler. This is much simpler.
And how often do you
go after those mice? Get them vaccinated. If the mice don't get it, the ticks don't get it. Ticks don't get it. We don't get it. And it's just like, let's break that system way before it gets to humans.
And how often do you have to put those pellets out?
4 times a year, right?
Well, yeah. The stations are year round. They start working immediately because mice are eating them immediately. Right, and they work all year round in the residential setting.
But you have to replace them every quarter, you would think, right?
Every quarter. Yep, just 4 times a year, not much.
And you automatically do that?
The pest management professional will as part of their service.
Steve will do it.
So Steve goes out there and he does his normal tick spray. So he has a new tick service, right, 4 times a year that he's offering. And so he goes out there, he does the sprays, and he maintenance the station, which means refills it, makes sure it's all good, and then he leaves it. And it's good for every 3 months he does that. You're not going to see it, right, because it's over in the edge of your yard.
Right.
There's some bushes or something like that. Steve knows where to put it, right, and then that's what it does.
And how much does it reduce the tick population in your yard?
So it doesn't reduce tick populations, right? That's what Steve does with his other tools, right? So this is just another tool in the toolkit. This one goes after all those mice and the ticks that are remaining, for what's back there, right? Because we can control them, but we can't eradicate them, right? That's just not, we haven't found the way of doing that yet. I know that because tick populations have exploded across the U.S.
Right.
And this black-legged tick especially, right, in the Northeast and Midwest, and it's just crouching downward and over through there. So back to your question, though, the 8 years of field trials, we watched them very carefully. Now, we have a vaccine for mice. However, we can observe what happens to tick populations in the science. These scientists are doing this, and what we saw was about a 75% drop of infected ticks over time.
Wow, that's huge.
75% infected ticks. So if you imagine you walked in with 100 ticks on you, and let's say 50% of those were infected, right? But now we're going to drop that by another 75%. According to these field trials that we saw. That means that you're seeing a big impact, right? And the vaccine is a big part of that.
Right. And you guys also said you can spray for ticks in the yard too. Is that effective at all, and how long does that last?
Sure. There's a lot of different tools. There's a lot of different tools. They work in different ways. I support anything that has good science behind it. That's effective. Yeah. That's something that's cost effective, that works well with the pest management professional and their operational schedule. So there are different tools out there, and this is just one of them. I tell people this all the time. This vaccine isn't magic, right? It doesn't just go out and cure things, right? It doesn't just go out and just, wave a wand. But what it is a very effective new tool. It's another tool in the toolbox, another arrow in the quiver, another way, layer in your yard to help with these mice.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's kind of a shame that we have to think about this, these days. But the tick thing is a really tough thing because it's something you don't. They tend to get on you in places you don't happen to check a lot of times, and you don't realize it's there. And if it's on for a couple of good hours, it can get into you, and then that's a risk you're taking out there. But it is good to know that there's some treatment out there, things that we could do. And I'm telling you, last year was the bee year. Everybody had a lot of bee problems, and he came out there and took care of our bee problem. I've never seen anything like it because we tried. We emptied cans of spray from the store to try to get rid of them, and we couldn't even slow them down. So it was one shot, we were done.
Well, this needs science. I mean, I have to have a talk with Guy when I get there. Tell me the reason for ticks, because I can't figure this one out. There's not like an anteater. We don't have a tick eater.
The poor deer are probably suffering with it too. It's like, hey,
I just don't get that. I don't get that. That insect really is like stymies me.
It's kind of funny though. We did notice. We actually have like herds of deer that walk through the yard. Which is probably not the best thing in the world. It was so funny when it snowed a couple of weeks ago. We looked at the yard and it looked like a stampede went through there with the snow.
Walk all the way through.
Yeah. Somebody What? I'm sorry?
It says LOL, so
okay.
it might be a joke.
All right. Well, that's a good. Well, he's talking about a text that came in. We have texting in here from listeners. Somebody said, "Grew up on a farm. Chickens eat ticks." Is that true?
That is true, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, lots of animals eat ticks. Possums eat a lot of ticks, right? Don't get me wrong. Look, if I get rid of all the ticks, I wouldn't. I don't think anybody would.
Yeah,
would
but
have a
here's
problem
what bothers
with that,
me:
right?
people eat chickens, and if they eat ticks, what does that do?
Well, they can't get all of them. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, these are things that nature does.
Not eating chicken
for
anymore.
these kinds of things. But
Back
they're
to
not
fish.
stopping them.
I'm going to start eating.
I used to like chicken. No more. That's it.
Yeah.
It's over.
I mean, I could throw 1 billion plus chickens out there per state, I guess, and have an impact on the tick population. But that's just not something that
I know.
But
But my point is, like, a lot of people eat chicken.
Yeah, but you can eat anything, and it doesn't infect you. It's if you get bitten in your bloodstream that the problem is.
Oh
The
man,
stomach.
don't go down that road, Taylor. You'll never eat again.
Well, don't worry about it
She
because
doesn't
I'm a
eat chickens anyway.
vegetarian, so
Yeah.
I don't eat them to begin with.
That is crazy. Hey, is there a time of the year when there are no ticks out there that we have to worry about, or is this all year
All
thing?
year.
Doesn't matter,
all
right?
year. Yeah, we usually think of spring to summer is what we traditionally think,
Sure.
right? But if you talk to the ecologists and you see what they're talking about, ticks are active now all year long. We have to protect ourselves all year long. And they're still most active spring to summer, of course, but that's usually when we're outside the most. But they're there all year.
Oh, that
you need
makes
something that protects you year round.
That's a good point. They're there all year. We're just not
you just
outside
don't,
all year.
you don't realize it. They're there. You walk under a tree that they might be up there. You don't know. They're pretty smart creatures there.
It's interesting because a number of years ago I had a physician on the air with us, and I forget what we were talking about. And off air, we went to a break, and we were talking about Lyme disease, and he said, "You know what? I get a shot from my veterinarian every year." And I said, What? And he goes, "They developed an inoculation against Lyme for animals, and they had it for people, but of course our great government decided, no, you can't use it for people, and so they made them stop not using it for people, but they still use it for animals." And he said, "My veterinarian, he gives me a shot every year, and I've not gotten Lyme." So I wonder what's in that shot.
Well, maybe eventually they'll
has U.S.
develop that, too.
Biological looked at that?
It's a Lyme vaccine. It's the same. It's actually very much the same vaccine. So the original inventors, Maria Gomes-Selecki, is a veterinarian and professor here at the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, and her partner, Dr. Luciana Richer, who's also a veterinarian, who's our laboratory director. They looked at human vaccines and they said, "This is too complicated. Humans are awful. They don't take their vaccines. You're right. I mean, they don't take their vaccines.
True.
It's too expensive. You have all these different groups talking about different things. There's
a
all
lot
this
of chatter.
misinformation.
Yeah.
Go to the mice. They knew how the mice and tick thing worked. They knew that if you could somehow vaccinate those mice, they knew that because we've been studying this forever on mice and Lyme disease. They said, how do you get it out in the field? How do you get it to where the mice are? And that's where the development of an oral vaccine, started with those two.
So is that vaccine that they're now using for animals only, is it effective for people, or do we not know?
It hasn't been tested yet. That's what.
No, it had to have been tested. It was approved for people originally, too. So why is it not still being used for people? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a big, long vaccination story. I'm not the one to tell it.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard the story. It's called the government wanting to control.
Here's what I know, lady. I know our vaccine works really well on mice. That's the comment.
There you go. There you go.
Good answer.
You must be married. You know how to switch that subject.
So a lot of interesting stuff, and you need to not only keep yourself safe, the kids safe because they're out in the yard.
Right. Your pets.
You can't see these things all the time, and there's a lot of dangers out there with, like we said, last year was a very bad bee year for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And who knows what's going to hit us this year. A locust in the forecast?
Well, those little, what are they called?
Cicadas. Yeah, no, they're not.
Cicadas.
Nah, it's not one of, who cares?
They're
it's just
a pain in the rear.
It's fun to be outside. We enjoy doing it. A lot of times we have to be out there to work in the yard. And this is a situation that affects everybody in the listening area. Even if you live in a town, right, where you got a backyard or whatever it is, the ticks are there.
I got bit by a tick. I took the tick to the health department for them to test it.
When was this?
Frank, a couple of years, 5, 6 years.
Oh, I thought it was like the one you got bit by the other day.
I didn't get bit by
You told me, you said, I think I got bit by a tick.
No, that wasn't me.
And then your arm fell off,
Who else
remember?
were you talking to?
Uh-oh.
No,
Sorry about your arm.
Tick. Yeah, they put it back on. She's okay.
Especially when you try to tie your
Fair
shoes.
enough.
Yeah. But, so, it's just something we do worry about.
Especially
we've been lucky
here
lately.
in the
So
Hudson Valley.
Yeah.
We're loaded here with it.
yeah, totally loaded.
Yeah, unfortunately, New York, New Jersey, that whole northeastern area, way above average incidence
Yeah.
than the whole U.S. And you've got it really is a challenged area, right?
Yeah.
And this is where we have to be especially cautious.
Yeah.
And we just have to keep an eye on it. We have to take advantage of the tools we got.
Sure.
And we got to do what we can do.
All right,
Yeah,
so if people want to get information, to get in touch with you guys, what is the best way to do that?
Limeshield.com. Just go there. There's a quick form you can fill out. I'm the one who gets all those emails. I'll probably get back in touch with you pretty quickly. But limeshield.com.
And where are you guys located?
We're in Memphis, Tennessee.
They're in a great city, let me just tell you.
You got ticks down there, too, or you got a couple down there?
Say that again?
You got a couple of ticks down there, too?
Oh, yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we got ticks and mosquitoes. But we
Yeah,
also got
mosquitoes.
snakes.
That's another thing.
That's another subject,
We got
mosquitoes, because they
Another
carry
reason-
disease,
Another
too.
reason why you can't go outside.
Why don't we
it
just,
is what it is.
why don't we screen
I
in?
think I'll stay inside and enjoy the radon coming up from the ground.
Nah.
The
Get
carbon
yourself something
monoxide.
good for your backyard. Get yourself something good for your backyard. Get out there and enjoy yourself.
That's it. That's what we got to do.
Listen, nobody gets out of here alive anyway, so just go have fun.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, Chris
Well,
is going to be
time is ticking away.
Jeez.
Sorry, Taylor.
You see what I have to put up with. But Chris is
Yes,
going to be on my show also, so we're going to have an hour, and Frank is going to join me for that.
Oh, good.
We're going to be talking even more in depth when we have a little more time. Although this probably wasn't the latest we've ever done.
Yeah, no, this is
a long one.
right
Yeah, but
fascinating.
well
though.
well merited.
Good information. We want you to be healthy out there and
Yeah.
know what's going on. So
All right, so
great
that's
idea.
limeshield.com, folks. Go check it out. But Chris, thank you so much for coming on, and don't forget Friday at 10 o'clock. You can hear more, so make sure you tune
All
in.
right. Yeah. Hey, man, one more shout-out. Ecotex, Best Buy MD, J.P. McKell. Go talk to these guys. They're fantastic.
Absolutely.
And Ecotech, Jim Seal, one of the best.
All right, you got it. Thanks so much for coming
good
on,
day.
Chris. Appreciate it.
All right, guys.
Take
Have a good
care.
one. Thanks
You
for
too.
having me.
Bye-bye.